Listen!
Hello and welcome to NVC, IGN's Nintendo podcast, Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of August 27th. This week we will be talking about Nintendo's newest Direct Mini Partner Showcase, some rumors about another Nintendo Switch model, I know, again, and a few other things like Seth's first impressions, actually his review on Final Fantasy Chronicles Remastered. It's a new word I just made up. But hey guys, how are you doing? It's Gamescom week.
Yeah.
It is Gamescom week, yes.
And we'll talk about that more soon. But first, what did you think about that Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase that surprised us all this morning?
Ooh, well,
you first, Seth.
This morning I was doing my normal morning things that I do, checking for deals, and I see trending on Twitter that there was a Direct, and I was like, how did that slip completely under my radar? And I got very excited. I looked into it, and I said, oh, this is why it went under my radar, because I'm kind of not interested in most everything that was announced today. I'm not trying to be negative, but
Here's the thing, Seth. If you don't follow Nintendo, with all your heart and every day, there's a rumor of a Nintendo Direct every week.
Right.
And it is true about once a month.
Yep.
And, occasionally there's a big one. And most of the time they're these small, either indie ones or these mini partner showcases now that they're dropping, where it's like, the question I always have afterwards is like, why didn't you just collect all these announcements and put them into one? Maybe the reason is there are certain games that it's not clear yet whether they'll be on time or what the release date is, and so they get up to the release week, and so they go, oh, we got to announce these things because this game is going to drop tomorrow, and so they just kind of pile up like that. But this one was such a weird mix. Casey, Did you watch it?
I did, and really weird, not a lot. There's nothing really in here that made me go like, oh my god, I can't believe. The last one people were disappointed, but at least there was Shin Megami Tensei. That was a big announcement that people have been waiting for. Even if it wasn't for you, some people could get excited. And for this one, the only thing that was like, oh, I'll play that. I guess Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythmic Adventure Pack looks like something I'm interested in.
Sign me up.
It's not.
Those games are good.
Yeah.
Those games are really good, yeah.
I like rhythm games. I like RPGs. I like monster collecting. Cool, it's got those things. I'm interested. I also did really like the original Puyo Puyo Tetris on the Switch. I actually reviewed it. I think I gave it an 8.7. So Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, okay. It's probably more Puyo Puyo Tetris, but it's something.
It's twice as much.
That's why I'm Casey, too. So, first of all, the Direct started, and we're 2 games in, I'm going like, why didn't they just frame this and say it's summer and music is in the air and here are all the great rhythm games coming to the Switch? And then as I was thinking it, the third game is also a rhythm game, right? They just did one after the other. They did Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts, there's always this I feel a little bit of pain when a game like that gets announced, because where's the real one, right? The main games are not on Switch, but you go and relive your favorite memories. And
I did guess this when we first heard about Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, and that there is going to be canon story, brand new to the Kingdom Hearts series in this game. So if you want to keep calling yourself a diehard Kingdom Hearts fan, you have to play this to know that part of the story.
Jonathan, there's an awesome video of Jonathan trying to explain the story of Kingdom Hearts, and it's just so glorious because he can just do it by heart, and to me it just does not make sense. But so we got Kingdom Hearts, we've got Fuser, which is actually really cool, the DJing game, right? Then we have Taiko no Tatsujin, the Taiko Drum Master, which is also a really good game. But they're all kind of smaller things, limited by them being rhythm games in my mind. Then we got World of Tanks Blitz, which World of Tanks is a huge franchise obviously out there, and it's always nice when Switch gets free games, but it's these are kind of the expected announcements, big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions. Somebody took all the words related to the Rocky movies and boxing, put them into a box and scrambled them and spat that out. It's It's got Rumble in there. Is Michael Buffer going to be mad, by the
mean,
way? Like, what are Creed's champions?
Those are from the follow-up movies.
Creed.
Because, Creed, which, thank you.
But
I was going to say, Victor Drago, that's not his name. It's Ivan Drago that I remembered. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Adonis Creed fights Victor Drago in the sequel.
So is Rocky a Creed champion? Is Drago a Creed champion? Anyway, it's nonsense titling. It's speaking of nonsense titling, we got the Saga games coming as Final Fantasy Legend from Square. And like that one, so I was already a little irritated when I got to that one, and then they're showing these Game Boy games with an interface that has literally, it looks like it was made for mobile with touchscreen D-pads and buttons, and they don't look like the Game Boy either, so it's not like this nostalgia play. It's just like, I don't know, I was annoyed, and then, I got to Just Dance, which is a game I don't play because nobody wants to see Germans dance. But obviously that's a humongous franchise, and that's got to be on Switch.
And it's the first Just Dance not coming out on the Wii.
Oh, no.
There you go. It's done.
Out.
And then we got to the last game, and they got me back because I love Puyo Puyo Tetris, and your review was dead on. It's a great game. It's got a really funny story mode with a nonsense story.
Yeah.
and just the promise of another nonsense story with new powers in Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. I'm definitely there. That one is cool.
I think I'll definitely pick that one up for sure, because like we just said, like I had a lot of fun with the first one, and I thought the story, as nonsensical as it was really fun and funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this was, I guess, obviously Square, right? Just a bunch of Square stuff ish.
Yeah.
Anyway,
this was not a great showcase. It wasn't. You could have told a story around this, like how did everybody become a Creed champion? No, you could have told a story around it with the the rhythm games and stuff, and like it just kind of felt like a big jumble to me. And like every single game announced is interesting in its own right, and there'll be fans who like them. Put together, it is a collection of games. You will not find a single person on the entire planet who will play them all.
Exactly.
And hey, if you're listening to this and you're going to play them all, I want to hear from you. Email us at nvc@ign.com.
Yeah, please let us know. And one more detail from this that I wanted to point out before we move on is that the Saga series originally came out in Japan, totally unrelated to Final Fantasy, but then when it released in the US, Square changed the name to the Final Fantasy Legend just to make it easier to market.
Yeah,
so it's not.
They did that with a few titles.
Yes.
Yep. Second and Setsu.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
The Saga, the Final Fantasy Legend game, when that was, I remember reading about it in Nintendo Power and being obsessed with it because there's the monster class that you evolve by feeding them different meats, and there was like a spreadsheet in Nintendo Power, and I remember just poring over and just wanting this game so badly and never getting it. So I might pick this up when it comes out in December, which is a long ways away. But
honestly, I love that kind of stuff, Seth. The spreadsheets that tell you how to get this.
Oh yeah, it's like, feed him this piece of chicken and he'll turn into this kind of monster.
Look, for all the negativity, it's cool to see older games coming to the Switch, like classics, and we're seeing now Game Boy games. I would hope for a little bit more care on how they're presented. Just obviously the Game Boy resolution is very different from the Switch widescreen, and so make the surrounding areas pretty. And you can adjust the size of the Game Boy screen and how it's displayed. But still, anyway, this is Makai Toshi Saga, so it's got retitled for the Western market into a Final Fantasy game.
Do we know who's doing the collection? I think M2 did the Castlevania collection, and that's maybe the best like classic game collection on the Switch. I
think it's just Square, right?
Yeah.
Is it just Square? They didn't like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Outsource it.
And I'm assuming, I honestly I don't even know if they're out in maybe they're already out on Asia and mobile, but I'm assuming this is we'll see the exact same release on Android and iOS.
Oh boy.
Because they have that. They already built the freaking touchscreen control.
Right.
Yeah. But that's about all we have to say about the mini direct that happened on Wednesday, August 26th. I guess let us know what you thought about that, and like Pear said, if you will actually be playing every single one of these titles. But we did hear some more rumors once again that another Switch is going to launch, but specifically next year. I know. I feel like we've been talking about, is there going to be a powered up Switch like every couple of months for the past 2 years? And man, I am tired of speculating, but this one seems to have a little bit more clout. I know.
Well, Casey, the rumor that a new console comes out is always true because it'll eventually be true, right? Like they were true. Definitely like, it's just what matters are the details. And you guys remember like in the first year of the Switch, there were already rumors of an upgraded Switch coming. There was people hearing about the slight hardware revision and then turning it into something that it was not an actual hardware upgrade and then running with the story. And it's like, you can imagine those same people in like 2 years coming back saying, hey, I predicted this.
Yeah.
But it's that's what's so important is like, now the rumors are saying it's 4K capability built in and all of that, which
I didn't know that.
Which is it will eventually be true, but it was not true 3 years ago.
Right. So this was originally according to a report from Economic Daily News, and Bloomberg actually backed up these reports that the new version of the Switch will enter production later this year because the current production companies are busy still making Switch Lites and regular Switches, and then will launch on retail in the first quarter of 2021. I've heard that Breath of the Wild 2 will be a launch title for it, and it will come with a slew of more Nintendo games, which is why this year has been pretty kind of empty in
Still
comparison.
My heart.
That seems so let's unpack that, right? Is the suggestion that this is a hardware step up and the game is the games are not compatible with the old ones? Like Nintendo's done this once really poorly with the new 3DS, if you remember that, right? Like you could release games that only worked with that one if you didn't play your cards right, and like that obviously didn't work for anybody and nobody cared. And what is more likely to me is that this is an upgraded version of the Switch, and it's the same approach that Microsoft is taking, is that it's the PC model where they're developing games that are, or honestly, I mean, it's been the Xbox One X model as well, right? Where your game runs on S and X, and it just looks slightly better on X. I feel like that is the approach Nintendo's going to take, where games that are updated to work with it can be upscaled to 4K, or like maybe not running natively in 4K, but getting there, running at higher resolutions, because remember, a lot of games don't even run at 1080p on the Nintendo Switch. So
I'm thinking
4K capabilities, by the way, your Switch can output 4K video. There's no limitation to that. It's processing the visuals.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think, Seth? What do you think of all this?
I mean, I think, absolutely there's going to be a new Switch. I think it's just going to be like a mid-generation upgrade. It's going to be, the top-loading NES of the Switch era.
I do agree. I think it will be similar to Xbox's model, as Per said, or like the new 3DS, but maybe better. And I don't think Nintendo will make games for it that are exclusive to only this model, but maybe this model will enable ports of PlayStation, Xbox, and PC games that aren't playable on the other Switch. Is that a completely out there speculation?
No, it could be. I mean, that was the idea behind the 3DS upgrade too, is that a publisher could port something over and it didn't have to run on the old hardware and would be wouldn't be backwards compatible. But obviously developers didn't do that because the 3DS install base was just too attractive. You didn't want to limit it to the smaller install. And so I think that could very definitely happen in the future, because we are going to now get to the point where the ports are no longer going to be of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 games. Like now developers are making PS5 and Series X games, and it's going to be way harder to port those down. Even though they might still be supporting, Xbox One X and older hardware with them. And so I think we're at this inflection point where, yes, I think there could be certain third-party games that don't run on the original Switch if that were to come to pass. And then I do think like the screen on the Switch is pretty nice, but there's room for it to be improved. It's a 720p screen. It could become a 1080p screen, right?
Yeah.
But we just had an episode of our our PC building show Rigs. Did you guys watch it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Look it up. It's Rigs with a Z because we're edgy. But it's like we're basically Dan and Stella got to spend $7,000 on building a PC.
What?
And they built they built a PC. They both put in 2 graphics cards, top of the line graphics cards, 64 gigs of RAM. So like big beefy machines, but still a lot of games like, you know, take like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it would run at 40 frames per second in 4K. And you can see the limitation. There's some, like, I think it was Stalker runs at like 20 frames in 4K. So just the notion that somebody will take, you know, hardware, shrink it to the size of a Switch that can still support these little controllers on the side and make it natively run in 4K, get real, right? Like they're...
Yeah.
You're getting closer to the 4K visuals, but you know we're talking about a tiny, very capable 1080p console.
See, my conspiracy theory, because I always have one, is that the next Switch upgrade won't be the console itself, but it'll be the Switch dock, and it'll work like those external graphics cards that you can buy for like certain Alienware computers, where all the basic graphical stuff is inside the dock itself. And I support this conspiracy theory by the fact that it has been impossible to get a first-party Nintendo Switch dock for like 2 years now.
Ooh, yeah. And that is, you know, you can obviously boost power by daisy chaining hardware in some fashion, right?
Yeah, especially with that USB-C connection. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then
really
when
cool.
I'm right, eventually we'll be right. There will be a new Switch dock.
No, so you are, Seth, you will eventually be right, because maybe in 12 years that will be the model of the Switch.
Yeah.
And it'll be cloud computing supported now. Look, I'm excited for a hardware upgrade, and I think, you know, at the very least there needs to be a step forward to put something new and exciting out in the market that retailers will want to put on their shelves. Remember shelves? And that make it easier to port some of the newer games that are coming out, because that's going to end soon, right?
Yeah.
So I would ask you both, what do you want to be included in the new Switch? But instead, I'm going to save that question for next week when we go back to video, because we got some viewer yaps answering that same exact question. But I don't want to do anyone a disservice by showing your yaps and then people not being able to see your beautiful faces. Yeah, so we're going to wait until next week. But we do have a question block question from Kevin Arola. If a warlock gave you the power to name the new model Switch, what would you name it?
Ooh. Why does a warlock have to give me the power? Why can't I find that power in myself?
I would name it Switch 4K.
That'd be the simplest, easiest communication.
Although I will say that maybe we're putting too much focus on resolution. Like we run a lot of polls on IGN, kind of gauging the interests of our users, and like in a poll of asking frame rate versus resolution, I think it was 85% frame rate. So I don't know. I doubt they would go with something as on the nose like that, especially if mainstream consumers don't really give a poop about 4K, 8K, and all of that.
I mean, then my answer is Switch FPS.
Oh, the Switch Smooth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I like that too.
The Switch 120. It runs at 120 hertz.
I'm going to name it the Switch On.
I like that.
The Switch
Switch U.
No, Seth, no. Not that. I don't know. We have the Switch Lite, which is like light switch, but backwards. I don't know. I was trying to think of something else that would be silly like that, but...
Power Switch. It'll be Switch Power.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that actually sounds...
You like that?
I like that one.
I'll make you one.
The Switch Power.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please do.
Let's do that. But
I want one.
Yeah, I would like one, especially if it comes with a really cool... All right, we're going to get a new Monster Hunter on the Switch, and there's going to be a new Switch Power Special Edition Monster Hunter.
So what is actually going to happen is that they will be able to port the last one over, and you're going to get to play that again in case.
There we go. I would say I might, but I know that'd be a lie because I have 800 hours in that game. I'm not redoing it. But those are the biggest stories of this week. We do have some very small stories, like there's a new Wonder Boy announced, and it's called Wonder Boy Ashen Monster World, and it's led by the series creator, and a full reveal with gameplay is set to arrive later this week during the Gamescom Awesome Indie Showcase, which kicks off at 10 a.m. Pacific on Saturday, August 29th, right here on IGN. Are either of you familiar with Wonder Boy?
Yes.
Who's excited for this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's cool to have the original creators back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very neat.
And just for Gamescom, obviously, if people have time, hang out with us. We're kicking off with Opening Night Live, Jeff Keighley's show, which has some really cool reveals in it, some cool trailers of games that you have heard of and some you've never heard of. And then we go right into the next days. We go into IGN programming. It was very, very complicated to get this done remotely with this little pandemic out there. But I think we've got a really cool program, and I'm actually really excited for the indie showcase. It was so jam-packed. We initially were going to do 90 minutes. It's like 2 hours now, and we had to turn games away. We picked just the coolest stuff.
And is Tom the one who's hosting that one?
There'll be a virtual Tom.
Virtual Tom. You guys got to see this virtual Tom. It's pretty great. But I know Tom will be around.
It's Tom Headroom.
I like it.
It is very creepy. It has a little bow tie.
Seth and I will be around on Saturday, and I'll also be around on Thursday afternoon and Friday. So come check out Gamescom on IGN.com, which is probably going on right now if you're listening to this on Thursday.
Yeah, what are you doing? Stop listening. Oh, a little bit of German.
The only little bit of German that I know.
Sehr gut, Herr Macy.
Danke, danke.
Bitte, bitte.
But that is about it for news. There's really not a whole lot because we're saving it for Gamescom this weekend. But there are a lot of games out this week, including Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition, which Seth reviewed. Yep. And the review should be up right now if you are listening to this. And this is a game that Brian and I were excited for. I remember it fondly. Brian really likes it. Seth, you had a different take on Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered, though.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I am sad to report, and I know that people are going to be real mad at me. I do not like this game at all. In fact, I never want to play this game again.
Oh, jeez. Is that okay? Okay, so you got to tell us a little bit more about that. Is that because the port is bunk, or is it the game hasn't aged well? Like the
game is definitely not aged well. I was very excited to take this review on because I missed the game the first time around, and it was always one of those things. I was like, I really wish I played that. It sounds exactly like a game that's totally in my wheelhouse. Final Fantasy universe, based on like that with the cutesy style. It's like a dungeon crawler, but it's a lighter dungeon crawler, and it has some pretty novel sort of not leveling up elements, but it was something that I've been wanting to play, and so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll play it. And it turns out the game, it did not age well at all, and it has absolutely atrocious loading times to the point of being ridiculous, where you'll take 15 to 20 seconds of loading, then move your cart one space, another 15 to 20 seconds of loading, get into your little cutscene, which some of those cutscenes are like 10 seconds long. Then another 15, 20 seconds of loading, get back on the overworld map, go to your next location, 15 to 20 seconds of loading, get into where you're going, and it ruins any sort of rhythm that you're able to get into in the game. There's one, I can't remember the name of it. It's a mansion level, and there are rooms on outside of a courtyard, and you have to go into each one of those rooms, and there's 15 to 20 seconds of loading to get into these rooms, and it's just one room. Like there's not like a whole like maze on the other side of this door, and you have to stand on a switch until the symbol for the element that your chalice currently has comes up. The switch goes down, the door opens. 15 to 20 seconds kill sometimes one enemy on the other side. Wait for that symbol to come back through again. 15 to 20 seconds, back out in the courtyard. Do that for like 9 rooms. It is real rough. It is not fun at all.
Your full written review on IGN.com should be up around now.
Yes, God willing,
what
it should be.
Did you give it?
A 3.
Well, he's torn, right?
Yeah.
I see. Have you decided?
3 or a 4, probably.
You'll find out on IGN.com.
You'll find out. Yeah. Keep it locked. Shout it out in the
man.
comments below. Yeah,
That's
people are gonna be
bummer.
real mad, and I'm not like it doesn't bring me any joy to play a game that isn't fun. I know it's a bummer for everybody involved. And I just came off. I gave a Microsoft Flight Simulator a 10. I consider it a masterpiece. It's like one of my favorite games that I've ever experienced. And now I'm playing the game that I've rated lowest on IGN.com for multiple reasons. It just is not. It's not a fun game.
I was hoping to get Brian on, but Gamescom, super busy. I know that Brian really enjoyed the original one. I have really fond memories of the first one, but again, It was 2004, and I was playing briefly with friends. So
yeah.
But the original one did get a 7.6.
Yes.
But so I don't know if you remember this game really fondly, like maybe you would still think the same.
Yeah, I think this is a game that if you remember it fondly, you're gonna have fun. Like if you've games have come so far in 16 years. And
yes.
This is, a lot of the things that we take for granted now have been ironed out, like the loading times or the kind of like the battles are pretty repetitive. They're not particularly fun. Sometimes they're extremely frustrating. I don't think it's a spoiler to say if you die to the final boss, you have to go through 2 minutes of loading and unskippable cutscenes, and that's with mashing through the buttons to go through the dialogue. It takes 2 minutes from the time you die to the time you get back into the fight, and that is not fun.
I know that was a complaint about Control. Is the save points were a little bit too far away from the difficult points where you would perish.
Yeah, that's another thing. If you the save points are generous in that if you do die at the last boss, you start up again. You have to skip through the 2 minutes of loading and dialogue, and that is with skipping through it. It's 2 minutes. It's more like 5 or 6 minutes if you let the dialogue play out. But if you leave the game and come back, you have to do everything leading up to the boss battle again, which involves answering a bunch of questions, fighting some pretty not terribly tough but strong minions that can take you down in like 2 hits. It's exhausting. I'm sorry, everybody who likes this game. I hope you enjoy it, but I definitely don't enjoy it at all.
You didn't make it. You don't have to apologize.
Yeah, it's a bummer, and the lack of local co-op, I think, really, really hurts it. I think it would have been a lot better.
Local co-op on the same screen in the same console.
Right. Yeah. Like four players on the same screen, same console. Just sitting on the couch co-op. It's not even an option.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's always Diablo.
Yep.
That's Minecraft Dungeons. I reviewed that and I gave that a 7. That is a very fun little lightweight dungeon crawler with it has a lot of potential. It could have been better, but yeah. And Diablo 3 on the Switch is like chef kiss. So
awesome. Yeah.
And luckily, there are other games out this week if Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition doesn't sound like your cup of tea. And thank you again, Tom Marks, for filling this out. As always, the first game is No Straight Roads, out on the 25th for $40, and it is a music-based action game from the lead designer of Final Fantasy 15. That sounds crazy, right? That sounds pretty cool. I'm like clicking on this now. It's like, what is this? Oh, the art is really stylistic and colorful and cool. Looks interesting. There's also Jenny Leclue Detective out on the 26th for $25.
I thought that was a typo.
No, I played it.
What do you think?
It's good. It honestly is good. It started as a Kickstarter a couple of years ago. I think it's a small team in Florida actually. They did it as a Kickstarter. It was meant to be a return to kind of classic adventure games, like kind of like the LucasArts style stuff, and that's what it is. It's like this really cute but really well designed, well animated, well voice acted story about this young girl who acts as a detective, and it breaks the fourth wall all the time, and you have to kind of look at clues of a crime scene, and crime scenes are sometimes as simple as what did the principal have for breakfast, and you have to look in the tie and see what the leftovers are. That's sort of kind of like, hidden object finding puzzle stuff, and then drawing clues from them and putting together what happened. It's really good. It's definitely it's kind of like it's a cool adventure game for girls, I think. It skews a little bit younger in the age group, but like it is so well made that even as a grown up, you can get something out of it. Really good art style, really nice Switch port, runs smoothly and all of that. So actually a really good game.
Cool. Thanks for the insight. And also out this week is what?
Hypnospace Outlaw. I didn't even it clicked in my head what that game is. Like everybody's like, you got to play this game. This game is you. And now it's coming to Switch. I haven't played it yet because I'm an idiot who doesn't listen to people's advice.
Well, Hypnospace Outlaw is out on the 27th for $20, and it's a game where you explore a retro computer desktop/internet as basically an internet cop.
Yeah.
This is Tom really loves this game, and he wanted to point out that you can play it with a mouse and keyboard on the Switch, which is
What?
Yeah, exactly. What? Okay, why? Have you gotten a chance to play this pair?
No, but I want to. Now that I know that this game is Seth Macy, I want to play it.
If you look at screens of this game, you will understand why people tell me that this is Seth Macy, the game.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It is very Seth Macy.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
It looks... It's like, the aesthetic is Seth Macy.
Yeah, because I was complaining one time. I was like, man, I wish we could go back to the web of the 1990s and just how pointlessly obtuse but strangely compelling and attractive it was. And someone was like, why have you not played Hypnospace Outlaw, you idiot? There's a game that's describing exactly what you want. It has already been made. So
Go check it out.
There's a demo out, so I'll definitely play that one.
Nice.
We'll come back next week when we talk about games we're playing.
Anytime you want me on this show, it's like my favorite thing to be on NVC.
Yay, Seth!
Everyone's so nice. Aww. Like the hosts are great. The fan base is wonderful. Like I just feel great. So
yeah, honestly, I feel all of you guys at the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast forums on Facebook and all of our commenters, you guys are wonderful and super nice, and thumbs up all around. But also out this week is Winbound on the 28th for $30. This game looks really cool. I pulled out a few quotes from our preview, which called it survival with a touch of Zelda. It is part survival game, part action adventure, and part procedural roguelike. And it's a bit like Raft and Wind Waker had a baby with a single player version of Rust.
Wow.
It also looks really pretty, and you explore on a sailboat, and it looks, I don't know, man, it looks really cool. I want to play this game.
Yeah, the sailing parts of Wind Waker, I would sometimes just set sail. And I wouldn't even play the game. I'd experience the weather and listen to the great sailing music and just feel relaxed.
But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to play it and come back next week and talk about it. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Also this week, which was also shown off in the mini direct Wednesday morning, is Captain Tsubasa: Rise of New Champions for $60. It's based off of an anime about football or soccer. And the manga series actually began in 1981 and actually popularized soccer in Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is one of those series, like I'm trying to remember what the last one was that I played, whether it was on the GameCube or the GBA, but it's been a decade since we've seen a game in this series on a console, so it's cool to get it back. Like I remember playing it on the Super Famicom when I lived in Japan in like the early 90s. They're basically arcadey soccer games with like crazy anime style animated finishing moves and all of that. It's a really fun series.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you guys want to check it out. I was hoping there's a demo, but I'm not sure.
Aw.
But we'll see. But yeah, the anime and manga are really highly acclaimed, so hopefully the game lives up to that.
Cool.
But let's talk about some games that we are actually currently playing. Seth, you already talked about Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Is there anything else you're playing?
Just Nintendo Flight Simulator.
Cool.
Any childhood dreams you want to ruin?
I know. I feel terrible ruining people's childhood.
I was so excited for that, Seth.
I mean, I'm the reviewer. I can't speak for you. I can only speak to my own experience. And my own experience was that I didn't like it and I never want to play it again.
And that's completely valid and it's totally okay.
Thank you for validating my
Yeah.
opinion.
Fair, what about you? What are you playing?
Seth, you know what you should be playing is A Short Hike.
Oh, really?
We talked a little bit about it last week, but I hadn't played it yet, and I've jumped into it. Janet recommended it too, right? It's this cute little pixelated, almost original PlayStation looking 3D adventure game. It's kind of like it's a little bit like a Wind Waker without the sword combat. So it's like exploration. You're a bird. You can hover. You can learn to climb higher by getting more feathers and do little tasks. And you can grab a motorboat and drive around the ocean and stuff. And it's like
As birds want to do, yeah.
And then visually, it is like that kind of 32-bit pixelated style, but you can actually adjust it with a slider if you want to make it sharper too. You can do that, but it's got this cool aesthetic. Cool. It's great. It's really charming, really funny writing. It is literally a short hike, and the whole premise of the game is that you want to make a phone call, but the connection is really bad, so you want to climb this mountain. And so you get sidetracked by helping people and like collecting things and watering plants and turning them into little trampolines and stuff like that. It's really cool. Definitely,
I've only heard great things about it. I know Zach wanted to come on and talk about A Short Hike as well. So, I mean, everyone just thumbs up all around.
Too bad for Zach.
Yeah.
It's a really cool game. And then I'm also playing Raji, an ancient epic. We talked a little bit about that. Janet had only played a couple of minutes last time, so I played a little bit farther. It's a game that's set in Indian mythology, music, storytelling, voice actors, all of that, which is kind of a rare sight and sound. She had a couple of complaints with it that I can see. It's like, imagine it's Prince of Persia basically, right? Like you navigate environments, you climb, you jump, you have to do be careful that you don't fall to your death, and then there's combat, and you can jump off like pillars and walls in order to attack enemies. The difference is it is kind of like almost played from it's played from the god's perspective. Like the camera is zoomed out, so your character is very small on the screen, and all the sounds and everything is quiet too because you're so far away, and then the gods will speak and narrate over it, kind of like what they're seeing once in a while. And then it's really like look wise, it looks really cool. The Switch version runs well. It has some rough edges, like open areas it will chug, but it's like generally it's a good looking game, and it's just really unique in that we haven't seen many games set in India like this, and using music and all that from India. But it is kind of like, it's not as immediate and action focused as the modern Prince of Persia games. So like control wise, it's not quite there, but it's pretty good. I'm enjoying it, and I'm gonna keep playing it.
Okay, pretty good.
Nice.
Raji, an ancient epic.
Yeah.
I'm not playing anything Nintendo. I think by the time the show comes out, I'll be playing Tell Me Why, because it is an adventure game that has accessibility controls so that you don't have to hold down buttons. So I will be able to play it easily. So I'm going to check that out when it comes out. But let's move on to Question Blog and answer some of your questions that you submitted to us through NVC@IGN.com or through our Nintendo Voice Chat podcast forums on Facebook. This first one is from Clark from Cleveland. Hello and welcome! I was learning about Paper Mario and how it was created due to the system limitations of the N64, and it struck me, is that necessary creativity gone? It seems to me that in the past, developers were forced to get creative to make the games work within that console. This includes being forced to use the audio chips in the consoles that the consoles had. With consoles getting more and more powerful, do you think there is less of the necessary... Is there less of the necessary creativity today than there was in the past, and has it had a negative impact? Thank you so much for the amazing show every week. Get the thing.
Oh.
This is such a great question, and honestly, we can't quite answer it because I think in the end it's up to the individual and how they want to use that power they have now to do new things. But I'll give you an example, right? Like there there are limitations of consoles that are related to memory and the size of the world that you can stream in and show to the audience at one point in time, or to the amount of characters you can display on the screen. And like those limitations go back all the way to the original first generation console, second generation. Like if you think of Atari VCS, where games like Adventure were built where the maze was a sprite. So the makers of the console thought you were going to use sprites for enemies, and then somebody is so smart they use it for the actual maze and the levels themselves. And like that creativity, like we marvel at it today, and it ultimately meant that the games that figured out these tricks were the ones that stood out, because they just weren't a lot of them. However, it can also hold your games back, and that's like with regard to how big an open world can be, or how long the load times are between areas. And a developer may say, it takes too long to load in this next world, so we're not going to do it like that. We're going to chop up this game. Or like a game like The Legend of Zelda, where the screen, if you think of Link to the Past, like there's some scrolling, but you eventually get to an edge and the entire world will scroll over, and the enemies that were there no longer follow you. Those are the limitations that make for creative solutions, but can also hurt the gameplay, right? Like if you're able to use the limitations of the world against the enemies to cheese them, you could argue that that's part of the charm and the creativity, but it means that, something that there is a little bit of a break between what the creator would have ideally done and what you got. And so, yes, games like Paper Mario owe their existence to the fact that it was too hard to do 3D characters back then. But I gotta think that with the openness of the new consoles and with the power, I don't think developers are going to be any less creative. I think they will get the courage to do stuff like cell shading, because it looks good and it speaks to their sensibilities and what they want to build. And so, yeah. No, that's a wishy-washy answer, but it's like it really depends on the creative minds. And I do ultimately think that with an expanded canvas, you're going to get pretty pictures.
Yeah. And just as a really straightforward answer, just as an example, I know Hideki Kamiya, who wanted to make Scalebound from Platinum Games, had wanted to make that game for years and years and years, and finally thought the power of the current gen consoles like the Xbox One would finally be able to handle what he wanted to do, and he still couldn't make it because of the power. So I'm assuming there are developers out there that have these crazy awesome creative ideas and just don't have the capability, the technical capability to do it just yet. So I think it can go both ways for sure.
Yeah, Pikmin is a good example of a game you couldn't have done on Super NES with 100 moving characters, right?
Oof. Yeah.
One of my absolute favorite things in the world is like clever use of resources. Like people making a playable video game on a boot sector of a 5-inch floppy disk. Like there's no room there, and they just figured out. I don't think that creativity, or that those limitations going away, is going to hinder creativity. I think now, instead of figuring out novel solutions to make a game fit, now they can use that creative energy to just like make the game better, because they still have that creativity inside of them, and they can I think the limitations going away is going to make for just better games, because the sky's the limit.
There's a good example with cutscenes, right? Nintendo used to do cutscenes with in-game characters because the cartridges couldn't store all this FMV stuff and all the CG-generated stuff that other studios were using. And so, in hindsight, there's actually much less of a break between a gameplay moment in a Nintendo game and a cutscene, whereas like you go back to an old Final Fantasy RPG and it's like the characters look completely different, and like the movie scenes now look very dated by comparison because of that switch. But now we're at a point where developers have consoles where the in-game characters look so good they don't even have to pre-render anymore, right? And so like it's not hampering their creativity, it's actually setting them free to not have to think of how to do storytelling by pre-rendering everything. They can just use the game engine because it looks so good.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for that great question, Clark.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And this next question is from Dalen Hubbard, and they ask, what is the best generation of Pokemon? So you can take this in very many different ways. Like, do you mean the generation of game or the actual generation of new Pokemon? And that is hard. That is a hard question. I'm taking it like that. What is the best generation of new Pokemon? And I can't tell you. I can't tell you the best one.
It's an easy
What
one.
is it?
The best
Pick a
generation of
number.
Pokemon is the Pokemon generation that came out when you were 10 years old. That is the best generation of Pokemon. It's like the best season of Saturday Night Live is the one that came out when you were in high school.
There
That
were
is
no Pokemon when I was 10.
Well, there
Oh,
were
no.
no Pokemon when I was 10 either.
It was like
But,
Raiders of the Lost Ark for the Atari VCS.
I
That's
think
what we had.
Generation 2 of Pokemon came out. I actually have a list. I can look at all of the sprites of every single Pokemon of every single generation because I'm playing a Pokemon Dungeons and Dragons game, and we need to be able to
Oh,
see
that's awesome.
the sprites to like put them on Roll20, and it's really cool.
Cool.
But Gen 6 is super small, so I'm not going to pick Gen 6. I think Gen 4 is a lot of really good favorites. Like
I'm so like, to me, nothing ever gets close to the original. You know, like what was it, 151, right, with Mew. I don't know, like I never had a connection to the
original
Pokemon after that generation in the same way that I had to the originals. And like, yeah, they got cooler and like bigger beasts and all of that, and you know, like made like our original legendaries look sad. He zapped us and stuff, but like I don't know, like I just feel like the originals are so pure and so awesome, and that's why, you know, way more of them will show up in games like Smash Brothers, because that is the best generation.
What generation was X and Y?
6.
Okay, well then you said 6 wasn't, but I'm gonna say that one is because there's that Swordy Boy who you can catch and evolve into into 2 swords, and I think that's really cool.
Hone Edge, Double Blade, and Aegis Slash.
Yeah, I love my Aegis Slash. I gotta
really
find
good.
that. I have it
That
around
is-
somewhere.
Those are the most wanted Pokemon in my Pokemon D&D campaign right now. People really want that steel
Because
ghost
they're
type.
awesome. It's a sword that becomes more swords as it evolves.
Pretty cool. And they have
it's
a really
alive.
really cool mechanic where they switch forms depending on the move that they use. It's really neat.
So
but
good.
we can talk about Pokemon more, and we can answer. But that is all the time we have. I'm just started thinking about Pokemon, and now I'm distracted.
Oh, no, too late.
But that is about all for Nintendo Voice Chat this week. We hope you enjoyed listening. Don't worry, we will be back next week with video, as you have come to expect, with a full cast. But hopefully, myself, Pear, and Seth kind of held it down for you guys. Thank you so much for watching NVC, and remember, you can catch us every Thursday at 3 p.m. on your favorite podcasting platform. And remember, this is the only place that you can
Get the thing.
Nice, Seth. I did it.